Four ranked teams look to avoid pulling a Florida State in their Week 1 matchup on Thursday night, and I'd like to think there's no way any of these four get put on upset alert. For starters, they don't have DJU at quarterback. But the lowest point spread of these opening matchups for these ranked teams is 33.5, and that's NC State. And Missouri has the highest spread on the board, nearly 7 touchdown favorites against Murray State, as we welcome in Mike Calabrese to the show to talk more about this Thursday college football slate. Mike, there's 21 freaking games to bet on, and I don't know about you, but between the FCS and the FBS, I have no idea about half these teams and whatever's going on behind the scenes there. How do you, in particular, as a college football expert, break down all of these games and know everything from a betting perspective?
I mean, this is the time of year, be it the transfer portal or a new head coach, there's not a lot of continuity. And the joke is they just want to get these guys to line up in the right spot pre-snap on the very first play of the game. I view it the same way as a gambler. There's so much change that you want to make sure you get the fundamentals right first before you start firing in bets. And I think the human nature is to see that ranked number next to one of these teams and say, all right, I'm just going to lay the huge amount of points because these other teams they're playing at the FCS level, they must not be very good. But there's a huge differential between a ranked FCS team and some of the cellar dwellers that end up just taking paychecks in these spots and end up getting boat raced by 50 and 60 points. A ranked FCS team, in my opinion, particularly those in the top 10, they're akin to a minor bowl team at the FBS level. So you don't want to get caught automatically fading a squad like this just because you think that, they're just getting paid, they're happy to be there. There's a reason why FCS teams win outright every single year. So you want to go through your paces. You want to make sure you understand what they bring back, just like any other play for an FBS team. And today is an important day because it's Tuesday. It's Depth Chart Tuesday. You start to find out not only what they're putting on the field, but in a lot of cases, these FBS teams use opportunities to have the dreaded "or" on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. They'll have 2 or 3 quarterbacks who are listed as starters. They'll have 2 or 3 running backs. Sometimes that can play in your favor, and you need to go through the research and look historically how coaches either run it up or go vanilla to a shell offense in the second half, as we saw on Saturday with Hawaii. Very vanilla game plan against Delaware State because they have UCLA on deck, so they didn't want to put things on film. There's a lot of narratives to keep track of, so don't just blindly go ahead and lay the points.
So let's talk a little bit about that. More on the quarterback depth chart and all of that in just a bit, but let's talk about the big spreads a little bit more. You mentioned it, and obviously we just talked about the 4 ranked teams in action, all 33.5 or higher point spreads. How do you navigate through that in particular, and what are some of the teams that maybe you should keep an eye on? They could maybe cover this spread as like a FCS or a low FBS team.
What I like to do right away, as I mentioned, is separate, the haves from the have-nots at the FCS level. A program like Arkansas Pine Bluff is picked to finish 10th in the SWAC. That means that they're awful. And in their last 6 paycheck games, they've lost by an average score of 48 points in terms of the differential. The spread for their Thursday night game against Arkansas in their home state, 48.5. So that's a pass for me. That's clearly the books looking at the historical performance of the Golden Lions and saying, this is a team that needs as much help as they can get. We're just going to throw points at them and hopefully not take a bath on a game like this. But then you switch over, and there's some feisty FCS teams. I'll go to a team that you mentioned right off the top. Western Carolina, the Catamounts catching 33.5 against an NC State team that's getting some dark horse ACC title love. Here's the thing about Western Carolina. Cole Gonzalez is one of the best FCS quarterbacks in the entire country. I wouldn't be shocked to see him as a finalist for the Walter Payton Award, so I'm leaning to take the points in a spot like that. And likewise, Lafayette traveling to play against Buffalo. They are the Patriot League preseason pick to win their conference. They may end the season with 4 FCS All-Americans on their roster. And keep in mind, history does, pay dividends when you keep track of it. Buffalo is a team that loves to lose to FCS opponents, particularly out of the Patriot League. They've lost 2 games in the last 2 years to Patriot League opponents, Holy Cross and Fordham. Here comes another one in the Leopards of Lafayette.
It'll be interesting, and especially the NC State game that you mentioned. They do have that look-ahead spot with Tennessee on deck. Do they do the same thing Hawaii did, which is pull back if they get up early? And you mentioned the quarterback. That's why you got to buyer beware, and that's why we have Mike Calabrese on to talk about these big spreads, to talk about maybe spots that you might just see the big number and be like, there's no way that NC State is not going to win this game by 5+ touchdowns. But let's talk about one of the better games on this Thursday slate. That's UNC and Minnesota. And the Drake May show is over in Chapel Hill, unfortunately. He's in the NFL. And Max Johnson and Connor Harrell are currently competing for the QB duty. And this is kind of where you mentioned Depth Chart Tuesday. We might get a Max Johnson or Connor Harrell as the QB1. They have not committed to a QB as of this recording. They're UNC's 1.5, 2-point favorites heading on the road to Minnesota. Total right around 50.5. You broke this down, as you do weekly for us, on your NCAA football game. Tell us what the simulation said before we get your actual thoughts on this game.
So UNC ended up pulling it out on the video game console, 28-17 over Minnesota. That means that they covered the number. It goes under the 50.5 for the total. Early on, red zone miscues. You had Minnesota stopped at a 4th and goal at the 1-yard line with an opportunity to tie it up early. UNC also missed a chip shot field goal inside of 35 yards. But the headliner here was running back play. Darius Taylor, Minnesota's running back, who in real life, by the way, is coming into this game banged up. He'll probably be listed on the injury report with a leg injury. He ended up bowing out of this game in the second half with an injury, and that really kind of opened the floodgates because once Minnesota had to play one-dimensional football, just putting in the air, Max Brosmer was just not able to carry them over the finish line. So they end up losing by 11. The player of the game is Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. He had a 90-plus yard rushing touchdown that really got things going for the Tar Heels. And once they had that balance between run and pass, it opens things up for Max Johnson, who played the majority of the game at quarterback. And finally, it wouldn't be real without some flags. Minnesota had 6 penalties. It also wiped out a 42-yard gain for them. So they had some tough luck at home in their season opener.
I love this, and I love the highlights. I love everything about this, that we finally get college football back. We can simulate it. We can see what's going on. Hampton, by the way, is absolutely incredible. Watching him last year was just such a pleasure to watch. Now let's ask your thoughts on this game actually from a non-video game perspective. Is the number right with the simulation saying UNC covers the spread?
This is one I'm going to wait as long as possible because I want clarity on this injury situation with Darius Taylor. They need him to be a bell cow back in this game. He needs to run for over 125 yards. Otherwise, I think Minnesota is drawing dead. And if he's not at full speed and he's not able to take on a workload of 20-plus touches in this game, I think it's absolutely reasonable to lay UNC -2. I would even flirt with the alt line up to 6.5.
That'll be interesting, and obviously you can follow Mike in the Action Network app to see if the injury news is enough for him to pull on the Tar Heels in particular. But, of course, we can't let you go without an official pick for this Thursday slate. We got Colorado against North Dakota State. Colorado, the number's gone up to 9.5, total right around 60.5. But the Shedeur Sanders show is not shying you away from fading the total in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm going under, and it's very simple. If you watch the first 5 to 6 games of the Colorado Buffaloes last year, they were playing at a lightning pace. Sean Lewis as their OC, who's now the head coach at San Diego State, he's implemented his Aztec-fast offense there on the West Coast. What it was doing is they were scoring in bunches. They were also letting Shedeur Sanders get beat to a pulp, and they were hanging their defense out to dry. So as the season went on, Deion made the decision to go ahead and make a switch at his play caller position. And Shermer is somebody who wants to protect Sanders, is in Shedeur, in the pocket by playing at a slower pace. And then that paper-thin defense, the fewer possessions they're on the field, the better. Here's something to consider. In those first 6 weeks, they were top 15 nationally in pace and plays per game. Once Shermer came in, he shaved 17 plays per game off of their total. That's a significant change. And here comes North Dakota State. Yes, they have a new head coach, but their identity is going to remain the same. They were 6th in time of possession last year at the FCS level. They want to play bully ball. They want to play keep away. And in short yardage situations, they make the math work for them in the run game because they bring in Cole Payton as their quarterback. He's a poor man's Taysom Hill. I think there's going to be an opportunity for North Dakota State to go on those 5, 6, 8-minute drives to really drain the life out of Colorado and keep their playmakers on the sideline. The last thing to consider, Colorado's third down defense last year at the FBS level, 125th. North Dakota State, in terms of third down conversions when they had the ball, third at the FCS level. I think all of the ingredients are here for a low-scoring game. So 59, I play it down to 57.5. I like the fact that this is steaming up. These people are excited. They want to see Travis Hunter hit those 75-yard touchdowns. I think North Dakota State's going to do everything in their power to stop that from happening.
Right. There is no, there is no obvious reason why maybe this total should be going up. But of course, the fans want to see Shedeur do the little right to the fans, show off the watch, show off the Rolex, because it is another year in the Sanders era for Deion and Shedeur. But Mike Calabrese, thank you so much. Hopefully we see some unders in that game, but have a good one, my friend.